All right. Am I on? Welcome to What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Maggio, and welcome to another episode. I'm really excited tonight because we're going to talk about my favorite topic. It is education. And so for those of you who don't know me, I own a school here in the Dominican Republic and online school that works globally around the world. And so tonight I have invited one of the newest additions to the school, and he is a teacher. He is a former school owner himself in China, and he is from South Africa. And we're going to take you on a journey through education and a lot of the misconceptions of what parents think education should look like because of what they know that it should be, and what the future holds for education and what it should look like. So welcome, Willem.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
I would love to say your last name, but I'm afraid that I'm going to botch it up. Now, Potager?
The English version, potgieter. The Dutch version, potgieter.
So tell us, you are from South Africa.
Yes.
And what was it like growing up in South Africa? Because you were born in what, 77?
Wow.
78, 79, 80, 81, 82. 80. I say 77 because I was born in 77. I know you're not as old as I am, but I should have thought about that before I said it.
84.
Okay.
So I was about 5 years old when apartheid ended. So
what was that like?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
You.
I wasn't really aware of it. I was aware of the conflict and the racial tension, but I didn't really feel that I had any benefits as a 5-year-old.
Did you feel that once apartheid ended that, or maybe family members felt it more so and you received it, was that there was I don't know if I would call it reverse discrimination, but that you were discriminated against because you were white?
Definitely. I think the racial tension is still prevalent. We still feel it. I think the world was just sitting back and watching, grabbing the popcorn, because everyone was expecting civil unrest and civil war, which we, luckily, thanks to Nelson Mandela, avoided. But yeah, there's definitely discrimination still going on, I think, on both sides.
So how old were you when Nelson Mandela came out of office?
3-4 years old when he came out of jail.
When he came out of jail,
Yeah.
when he became president, and how many years did he serve?
I think 4-year term.
A 4-year term?
Yeah.
Not longer?
No.
Interesting. I don't know that I knew that. So, I mean, I think from my perspective of an outsider just studying it, he was a very special man.
Yeah.
In the sense of the peace. And I mean, what was it, 27 years he was in jail?
Yeah.
And to come out and want to work together, I think that the world needs more of that right now.
Definitely. Exactly. Especially what's happening right now in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We need more Nelson Mandelas.
Yes. Martin Luther King's, Nelson Mandela's, Gandhi's,
Yes.
Jesus's.
Less Trumps.
Yeah. Well, it yes and no. But political wise, there are a lot of varying ideas about that. But one thing that you mentioned to me the other, because you worked in China.
Yes.
And you actually owned a school in China.
Yeah, correct.
What was that like for you? Because you had talked to me about it a little bit, and I think a lot of people have misconceptions of China, especially right now. But I think also that, you know, from a different perspective, from my perspective, or from a U.S. perspective, it might be a little bit different from what people actually know about China.
Yeah. Well, lived in far up north in rural China in Xinjiang. It's close to all the stands: Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Indian Mongolia. Lived there, and although China focuses heavily on education, I think they spend about every house spends about 30% of their income on education on the child. So they focus highly on education. So schools and language centers definitely prevailed there, did really well. I think the main thing why I tried to break away and start my own school was because of how education was viewed, where I think from a Western mindset, we try and look at a more self-directed learning approach instead of just saying, this is to work, learn it, regurgitate it, just put it down on
Yeah.
paper. So instead of teaching students to pass an exam, you actually, when it comes to language acquisition, you want them to be able to speak the language,
Sure.
think for themselves. And with language comes culture. You know, why are we saying this? Why is this in our language? Like, where does this come from? So it's also a way of thinking and not just a way of passing a test.
Yeah, I think that that is one of the main concerns that many people have, and things that are changing right now. Because when you think about education and what we do of education growing up, you had to pass certain exams to get to certain, and college was very prevalent, and getting into college or university was very important. Now, I know for me in the United States, you know, you had to take the SAT, and I refused to take a SAT prep course. I may have flipped through an SAT prep book, but for me, I'm like, I'm working so hard in school, and this one exam is going to judge whether I get into a certain school or not.
100%.
I was absolutely against it, and I turned out okay. So I think that, yes, a lot of times, and even still in the United States, a lot of families, upper middle class families, rich families, they are pushing their kids with AP classes and with these tests that really and truly, just to get into that specific school or whatever it might be. And I know it's important. I know now it's more important, I think, because of the networking. I didn't understand that when I was going to college or university. I had no idea. Like, I did my master's at a pretty prestigious school, and I wish I knew then what I know now, because I would have networked much better or built. I don't like network. It's very transactional, but built better relationships with people than I never knew at that point in time.
Hindsight is definitely 2020.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if we're focusing on education and just getting into a good school, like you say, having that connection, having those interpersonal skills are just as important for a student as being able to do well on a test. Because you're still going to have to pass an interview.
Sure.
So if you are able to just be good at testing, but you have no interpersonal skills, you're not well-rounded, you don't do sports, nobody's going to hire you unless you're an accountant. You don't really need a personality for that one, I think.
Even still. But I think that's really important, because the landscape of learning, what the future holds in education is very different from what you and I experienced when we went to school. Many of the jobs that we were trained or that were optional for us to do at that point in time don't even exist anymore. So when we're thinking about education and we're thinking about what young kids need to learn today, what do you think is that number one, number two, number three go-to thing that schools really need to be focusing on?
Just to add on to what you were saying, it's 100% correct that when I was, this is many, many years ago, when I was looking into options to study, like if you went into IT, you were going to find a job.
Mm-hmm.
If you went into education, you were going to find a job. There were, like, we knew exactly 20 years ago what the future would be like in 5 or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where now artificial intelligence is taking over IT. Like, if you want to learn to code, you don't need to go to a university anymore. You can do it on YouTube or online, or ask ChatGPT or DeepSeek to do it for you. It's that easy. So we have no idea what the future would look like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. There's no way we can sell it. Okay, the kids need to learn this and learn this and learn this, and then they would have a job. There are jobs now that didn't exist a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. There are kids online streaming that's making millions. Technicians, people who program artificial intelligence or know how to use artificial intelligence. That's a new job now.
Mm-hmm.
So jobs are ever changing, and I think for us who are in education, and me specifically in ESL, acquiring a second language, I think we need to focus on teaching the kids not just what they need to pass the test, but we need to teach them to love learning,
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy sitting by themselves, going online and not saying, listen, I'm going to doom scroll on Instagram or TikTok for 4 or 5 hours, but maybe use it as a micro learning tool.
Mm-hmm.
Learn something new, or try to learn a skill, or incorporate social media and artificial intelligence and everything that we have now, but teach them how to utilize it and love learning and use it in the sense of, okay, I'm going to better myself. Whatever the future will bring, I will be in a position where I am able to pick up something very quickly because I love learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's important because, so, one of the things that I often say is that we don't teach kids what to learn. We teach them how to learn.
Exactly.
And I think that in the past it was like, okay, you go to grade school, you graduate, you go to college, you graduate, you get a job, and learning is done. There wasn't really that conversation about lifelong learning. Like, you're never done learning.
Exactly.
And now with all of this information at our fingertips, it's one of those things that anybody can learn anything at any time if they truly want to do it, set their mind to it, and learn it. So one of the things that I've come to realize in the past few years is more about this. I hate calling them soft skills. I like to call them essential skills, but those soft skills of communication, organization, time management, problem solving, critical thinking, all of those things are way more important because those are way more difficult to learn later on in life. Whereas if you have a hard skill, it's much easier to learn a hard skill. And most employers will look at that person that maybe doesn't know the hard skill, but is there on time every day, is really looking forward to moving forward, has that ambition, that motivation, that I will go the extra mile to get what I need in order to be successful in this job. They're looking for that.
Yeah.
Then they'll teach them the hard skill. I think that is one of the most important things that schools need to be doing right now as well. Is like, because you look and you're like, where's the motivation?
Yes.
And where is what are you interested in? And how can we grow
and develop you as a person
with that? Yeah. And I think that that's very important. What are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree with you more. If nothing else, school teaches you to be responsible and be on time. Like doing your homework every day might seem like, oh, it's boring and I don't want to do it and I don't understand why. But that's real life in practice. It's, you're going to have to do your admin or your taxes or pay your bills. It's something that you need to learn the diligence of doing something every day, being consistent, not to be too cliche with Aesop's fables, but the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady wins the race. It's all about consistency.
Yes.
If kids learn the value of consistency, there's nothing standing in their way.
Right. I agree with you 100% because, I just had this conversation this morning with a parent because she thought I was being too hard on her child. And I said, and I explained specifically how I'm teaching responsibility because she was failing a class, more than one class. And I didn't allow her to participate in the end of the year show unless she accomplished her work. And it came down to being, I was mean, and I need to think about also their mental health more than their academic health. And I get that. However, if I'm like that for one, I'm like that for all. Consistency as well.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that consistently, then, and it's not because there's a learning disability or anything like that. That would be a different story. But you're not putting in your work, then you don't get the reward or the payment or whatever it is. You're not going to come out of academic time when you're failing to practice something that is extracurricular in order to be able to and be a part of that when everybody else that's being a part of that did what they needed to accomplish. And the lesson that I explained to the mom is that it's teaching them accountability, responsibility, that you don't get rewarded if you don't put in the work. It's sacrifice. It's perseverance, because there's the program that I told you that we use. It's called IXL, that, you answer all the questions, but then if you get one wrong, it brings your score down. And so you have to keep on building it back up. And it frustrates the kids to no end. But there's a bigger picture there. If that's going to frustrate you to no end, then you're not going to survive in the real world.
Yeah.
Because perseverance and persistence is one of those key skills. Are you going to give up just because you got one wrong and it brought your score down 10 points? Or are you going to continue moving forward? And so I had explained there is a much bigger picture than just the program. It is, first of all, the learning is more important. What is she learning? But the soft skill, the essential skill that she needs there is perseverance. And I often say that anybody can be Olympic gold medalist. Anybody can be a 1 million follower YouTuber.
Yep.
If and only if they're willing to put in the time, they're willing to take the rejection, they're willing to sacrifice getting up early, going to bed late, all of those things in order to be able to be that. And so, but most people aren't.
Out of the, how many people are currently online? You think like 5 billion people have access to the internet. How many of these influencers are making millions? 100,000 of them?
Yeah. Which is like
percentage-wise,
1%, 2%.
The chances of failure is extremely high. Like in the classroom, I'm a firm believer of positive reinforcement and not rewarding negative behavior.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as somebody does something, like not only praise them when they have accomplished something, but also praise them for the effort.
Yes.
Like if they try, I mean, at least try and reward that or compliment that or acknowledge that, where not everyone is going to achieve the same results
Sure.
every single time. Every kid learns different. Every kid is different. Not everyone can be number one. That's impossible. In a class of, let's say, 30 kids, you can't have 30 number ones. It's never going to happen. But number 5, 6, and 7 might not be as gifted as the number one student, but that doesn't mean that they didn't put in the effort.
Right.
Where who ends up last, you have to look at the student and say, listen, why did we end up here? Like, why are you last? Somebody has to be last, of course. I get that, but why are you last?
Right.
What can we do to say, listen, okay, we can be second to last. Like, how can we change that? Where is the problem? Is it consistency? Is it not understanding the work? Is it not putting in the effort? Is it the teacher? Is it the language? Is it, like, look at all the factors. We can't say, oh, but the problem is with the kid as educators, or the problem is with the parents, or the problem is with the environment. Like, if we do not realize that we might be part of the problem, we are the problem
Absolutely.
as educators.
Sure. And that's the thing, is that a lot of times, for example, my aunt was a second grade teacher for years. Excellent second grade teacher. But excellent teacher. But then one day she said to me, this kid is just terrible in math. And my question to her was, well, what are you doing differently to try and help her learn in math? Because as we know, there are different ways of learning, and therefore, and she's like, well, I'm just doing what I always did. And I said, well, maybe she learns differently. Maybe she's a visual learner, or maybe I don't know what you're doing to teach her that. But at the same time, what you're doing isn't working. Is that the kid's fault? No. Like, maybe if there's a learning disability there, but there wasn't one diagnosed. She just saw math differently. And so I think that is the other side of it too, is that what are we doing that is ultimately different than what we usually do, right? I have so many teachers that have come to me and said that I think the kid's dyslexic. I'm like, why? Especially in first and second grade. Well, because they're reading the word backwards. Well, no, they're looking at the word, seeing the last letter, and then looking at it backwards. That's not dyslexia, right? Like, once you tell them to start at the beginning and then go forward, then they get it.
People sometimes forget how really important it is to tell a kid, you need to start on this side.
Yeah.
Nobody tells you. They don't know. They're going to try and read it, but they'll start anywhere.
Yeah.
You literally need to tell them, like, this is the first one. You start here and move. I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, what have you seen? So how many years have you been in language teaching?
15 plus years?
Okay. 15 plus.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is.
I'm at over 20 something. And, I started as an Italian teacher, and language is one of those things that I've always just excelled at teaching. Breaking things down in general is something that I've been able to, for the most part, excel at. But language especially. What are some things, because, especially here in this area, so many people need to learn English, want to learn English, but then they're like, I can't learn, or I can't learn English, or whatever their excuse is. To me, it's an excuse. What do you find with the students that you have that is something that works well?
I struggled in school. Like, I didn't know how to learn. I didn't know how I learned. I only learned that when I went to university. I figured out it wasn't the classroom environment anymore, and nobody was telling me what to learn. Like, They gave me the information, and how I acquired it was up to me. Whether it was using the internet or the library, or that's how old I am, or books, or asking someone, or going to speak to someone, like I learn differently. And I think that kind of forced me into education as well, trying to help students who learn like me, or who's stuck in a classroom feeling really stupid because they can't learn something. When it comes to language acquisition, if you speak one language, your mother tongue, you are able to learn another one. You've already learned a language. We have proof. You can speak one. If you can speak one, you can speak another. It's literally that easy. How did you learn the first one? You were in the kitchen next to your mom when she was cooking. You were playing outside with your dad. Like, we need to bring fun back into the classroom and do activities and play games and say, listen, okay, but let's learn it in this way. Let's try making something with our hand. They'll remember that. Or how about, instead of me teaching you something, you teach me something. It's so much easier for students to learn anything in that regard. English, I think everyone learning English is extremely fortunate at this stage because it's such a popular language. Some of the best movies are from Hollywood. Their music is really popular. You've got Taylor Swift, you've got Bruno Mars. It's everywhere. It's in the newspapers. It's music. It's movies. It's books. It's so popular. So if you have an excuse where I can't learn a language, to me, I feel that you just don't have the interest. And if you don't have the interest, it's maybe because somebody didn't spark your interest yet. And I always try and inspire kids and say, listen, okay, but it's fun, it's cool. Try this. Have you listened to this? You don't want to write a book report? Write me a rap. You don't want to do the homework in this way? Make me a YouTube video. Like, what are you good at? Let's combine your skills with what I expect you to learn, and combine those and make learning fun again.
I can't agree with you more. Like, with that, when I had a couple years ago, when I reopened the school after COVID, there was a student, and oh my God, it was like, he wouldn't write for the world. Did not want to write. I'm like, but as soon as I told him that there's this app called Book Creator, and if he wrote the story, he could illustrate the story on this digital tool, then never had a problem with him again in writing the story. And I think that's really important, because kids will learn what you want them to learn when you allow them to learn what they're interested in learning. Now, I also see the other side of that, because a lot of kids aren't going to pick things because they don't even know that it exists. So I think part of it is we have to guide them into knowing certain things, because if not, they won't know anything about them. But also on the other side of it is, especially with language, if you like doing makeup or you're like into cosmetics and all of that stuff, like you said, create a video.
Make a TikTok and explain in English.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Exactly.
Apply this. What is this called? What is that called?
And I think that is the key today, because let's face it, most, at least in my experience right now, I have met many incredible young people who just want to learn more and more and more, and want to absorb everything possible, want you as their mentor, because they want to know how to get ahead, but they are few and far between. The majority are lazy, want to scroll TikTok, want to watch YouTube shorts, want to do whatever it is. And I think that there has to be a balance there, because even with parents, they're not monitoring what their children are doing and what they're learning. Well, I don't want them to think that I don't trust them. Well, guess what?
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't. Exactly. And you're not there to be their friend. You are there to guide them. Why? Because you have the experience. When I hear parents say, well, my child wants to go to this school, but the school is awful, does not provide good education, but they want to go to that school because their friends are going to that school, and they allow that to happen.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like, they don't know any better. You're the one that knows better. You're setting them up for a much more difficult road because they want to go to school with their friends. I think there's a lot of things that are undervalued. And even now with reading, parents don't read with their kids anymore.
Yeah. Who is reading nowadays? Everything's online.
It is. But even if it's online, like even our books in the school, most of them are online. That physicality is not there because it's just easier. You can get a whole barrage of books as opposed to one or two.
The space in a school, I get it. It's 100%.
Sure. And especially in the Dominican Republic, it costs a lot of money to ship books in. But parents, on the other hand, like my mom read to me every night. And when I was able to read, I read to her. We used to have reading competitions, who would get the most stars by the end of the year for reading the most books and stuff like that. It was a part of the everyday culture of me growing up. I never was like, oh, I don't want to read, unless it was like my biology textbook or something like that. But as far as a regular book, I was a reader because I enjoyed it. It allowed my mind to go to places that it allowed me to escape the real world, right? And unfortunately, I feel that, and I said this in my thing last Friday when I was, in front of the parents at this end of the year show, was you need to create a culture of reading in your home.
100%. I always compare parenting to golfing. The aim of golf is to play less golf. If you're good at golf, you play less golf. And as parents, you need to raise your children to not need you.
Mm-hmm.
That's your job, is to make sure that they don't need you anymore. You need to inspire them and create something in them that they will be okay the day that you are not there anymore, instead of being codependent with your children.
It's interesting you say that because I just had a mom say that to me today. She says, Christy, thank you so much for making my daughter independent. And I said, well, you have just as much of a play and a role because she's, she raised her daughter. She has her own, YouTube Spanish. She's Russian. So she does Spanish, Russian classes and stuff like that. And I see how she watches what you're doing as a woman, as a mom, as, going out there, creating these videos, creating these concepts, doing all this stuff, hustling every day to make yourself a better person. And I feel that has more of an impact on anything that I've done for her. And she's like, I don't see it that way. I go like, well, I do, and you should.
We do as teachers.
Sure.
We get it.
Yeah.
We can definitely see with students, like, your parents are putting in the effort. They're taking interest in your education.
Huge.
They're helping you review. They're enforcing positive learning habits. They're creating consistent learning at home. They're enforcing what we do in the classroom, which is really important. But it's more important going home and then being backed up by the parent.
Yeah.
Saying that the teacher was right, you should do this. Because if a parent starts undermining the authority of a teacher, the student will do that in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And nobody's going to learn anything. Everyone's just going to be frustrated.
And then I think is the struggle today. Like, there's a lot of kids should be kids. Yes, of course, they should be kids.
But they are. So whether they should or not, they are. We get that. They're kids. But, I mean, they're not going to be kids forever.
Right.
If you let kids be kids until they're 18, are we then going to start enforcing positive
Well,
habits?
and that's really what it's come down to. Like all of a sudden you're telling kids what to do. And I actually interviewed this young girl who at 24, she was working for NASA at the time. And one of the things that I asked her is like, if you could learn, you could have gone back to do anything. Well, that was a different question, but I'll get to that part in a minute. But she was like, the one thing is that up until 11th grade, 12th grade, everybody told me what to do. So I just did it. They told me what I needed to do, what I needed to learn, what I,
Yep.
what I should do every hour of the day. And then all of a sudden I get to 12th grade and I'm like, all right, so what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Like, and she's like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know. Tell me what I should. Like, she's
17
like,
one day, 18 tomorrow, and now you have to make decisions for yourself. And
Yeah.
nobody ever taught you how to make decisions
Right.
for yourself.
or what was good for her? What experience do I have? What traits do I have? What's my talent? And that's what she said. Well, what do you think? And then a teacher said, well, I think you'd be really good in engineering and math because you're really good at engineering. You'll be really good in engineering because you're great in math. So she's like, okay. And that's what she ended up going and doing. And she ended up working for it. And it all worked out. But at the same time,
It doesn't always, does it?
no. And how many, and my thing is that kids don't know half of what even exists
Exactly.
out there. And the
Or
one,
what's good for them.
right. And so I always tell them when it comes down to TikTok or YouTube shorts or all this stuff, I'm very blunt, you're an algorithm. You're seeing all this stuff and it's just feeding right back into you. I go, because you are creating what you're looking at, you're creating that for yourself. Like half of what you're watching is fake.
Yeah.
Half of what you're watching is not kids that made it on their own. It's
You don't see
mommy
those
and
stories, do you?
daddy who paid for them to have the YouTube channel and all of that stuff going on. Like, but again, how are they going to know if they don't have the adults that are telling them that the majority of what you're looking at is fake,
Yeah.
right?
Everyone is on the internet now, and I think the lines became blurred between information, fact, and opinion.
Yeah.
Where everyone's opinion are now seen as fact online. And kids don't know the difference. If you give them a bowl of broccoli and a bowl of candy and tell them to choose, zero consequence, they're going to choose the candy every single time.
Depending on how they were raised.
Exactly. So that comes from the parent explaining to them why this is better, why this is bad.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I think a lot of times that when, even with teachers, or with parents, like, did you tell them why? When I sit there and explain to them why they can't take pictures on their computer in the middle of a classroom because they're doing selfies on their computer, or why they can't use their phone, and explain to them why that is, it's so much more powerful and meaningful, and they actually listen thereafter than just saying because I said so.
Yeah. And the thing for us is we really need parents to back us up, because we're in a classroom with between 15 and 30 kids. It's really difficult to educate every single one of them, explaining to every single one
Sure.
of them one at a time why something is wrong. Education starts at home, 100%. So the way the kid was raised, that is how he's going to behave in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And we see that. Like sometimes, like I've been in situations where I've just had this kid who's just impossible, rude, talks back, doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to pay attention. You don't understand why. You try everything. You explain, you beg, you plead. Nothing works. And then you meet the parents and you're like,
But then
now
you
it
have
makes
to,
sense.
but then you have to reverse it,
yeah.
because the thing is that, and I have those, we have those, and
Every classroom does.
and the parents will call me to discipline the kid from home. Like the parent will be at home, the kid's out of control, and they will call me to get on the phone with them. I've had this happen multiple times. And I'm like, what are you doing? Because it's gotten so far out of control that they don't know how to reel it back in.
Yeah.
And I said, look, you're not going to have, usually recess taken away usually stops the problem because, of course, they want recess because that's what
Spend time with their friends,
that's their
play.
social time. But not just that. You're creating a monster, or you've created a monster.
Yeah.
And one of the children you will meet next week that you will work with is one of them.
Can't wait.
But he himself is highly intelligent.
Yes. It's usually the kids like that are extremely smart. They're frustrated. They're understimulated.
No, he's not understimulated. He just is lazy and only wants to do exactly what he wants to do and wants to do nothing else. Like our end of the year project exam was for them they had to learn something that they've been interested in learning but never had the time to learn. So the first week was them just learning whatever it was that they wanted to learn. Then they had to teach it to their classmates. And so they had to go through and make a lesson plan and how they were going to teach it and create an activity. And then at the end, they got to do it. They created a Kahoot to see if what they learned or not. Nothing. Did nothing. He did nothing, and those kids that do nothing, it's like, I'm not even telling you what to learn. Like I'm saying anything that even interests you a little bit that you know nothing about, like you have carte blanche for, and so those are those kids that there are very few, thankfully, that you're just like, how do I even motivate you? Where's the motivate? Like, what is going to motivate? Because you can't just let them do whatever they want when they want. There has to be those guides and lines of limitations. But here I'm giving you the ability to learn anything new that you want. It has to be brand new. Anything. And you're not interested. Like, where do you go with that? What do you do with that?
Yeah. Sometimes wonder where the problem starts at the end of the day. It's like I'm saying, parents need to enforce consistency and reward positive behavior, because if you reward negative behavior, or you're just saying, you know what, you're annoying me, here's the iPad, just go and sit somewhere.
Or if you just give me 20 minutes to myself, I'll give you blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. Like you're fostering negative behavior, and that will carry over into every aspect of their life, not just the classroom for us as teachers, but every aspect of their life. It's going to become a lifestyle.
And I think that this is where it comes down to thinking that, if hate can be learned, so can love.
Yep.
If discrimination can be learned, so can kindness, right? And so that is literally the thing that you are attempting, and that's most important. How do you take care of things? Like they just, throw this here, throw that there, but okay, this is a classroom. This is a school. This is not your stuff. You can tell how they probably treat things at home.
Yes.
Simply by how they treat things in school. But I think we talked about this, the Japan kids.
Yeah.
And how the very first thing that they teach these kids when they come in the door is how to care for the classroom and how to care for each other. And I think that that's so important. First, because if you have a conducive environment of learning where everyone respects everybody else, ultimately you have a conducive environment for learning.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
No, I agree with that. I remember when I was growing up, my mom told me that I was a representation of her outside. Like
Yeah.
how I behaved outside is how people see what's happening in our home, how she is as a mother, as a person, how I'm being raised. And if you misbehave in that sense, like I would have shamed her. Not that I should have behaved well because I was afraid of bringing shame to my family, but that's just how people are supposed to be with one another: respectful, mindful, taking care of each other, taking care of everybody else's stuff. Just because you don't like the people doesn't mean you have to break the furniture.
Exactly.
And that's really frustrating. Like from an educational side, when you have children like that, the only thing that only advice I can give to anyone is just have the consequences consistent. Like explain like if this is going to happen, this is going to be the consequence, and then have that consequence every single time,
Every time.
just to show some consistency. Even if I'm tired or angry or I don't have the time right now, that consistency is more important to the student than you think.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Consistency is key. If I tell you that this is what's going to happen, then this is what's going to happen. I don't care who comes into my office. I don't care if your parent comes screaming and yelling and whatever. If that's what I said, that's how it's going to be. Because what parents also don't understand is that when they come in to try and plead their case for their child, they're teaching their child that, oh, my mommy and daddy will go in, plead the case for me, and I'll get away with it. So I don't have to worry about not getting in trouble.
Undermining the authority,
Exactly.
zero consequence again.
Yeah.
The thing is, I am stuck in a classroom. I'm stuck. I'm not saying it that way. I'm not stuck. But you're essentially stuck for a few hours a day in a classroom with kids. And I'm responsible for every single one of them. So if I have one student who's throwing around chairs, he could harm another student. Like it's my job to make sure that everyone is in a safe environment.
Yes.
And if you show consequence and then the parents undermine said consequence, you're essentially teaching your child that it's okay for this type of behavior. And that type of behavior might be acceptable at home, but you need to know that in this classroom or classroom environments, there's a way that you act. Like I was always trying to teach the young kids when they were screaming and shouting. I'm like, okay, we have two voices. We have an inside voice and we have an outside voice. Outside, you can go crazy. I don't care. But when we're inside, we're respecting everyone else's personal space. We talk like reasonable people. We're respectful. So inside and outside voice. These are the rules. If you want to be in this classroom, you have to follow these rules.
Yes.
If you do not, you're more than welcome to leave.
I agree, because I think at the end of the day, the raising of children is becoming much more prevalent on schools than ever before.
Yeah.
You know, we are now in charge of their social, emotional, mental, academic responsibility, manners, all of these things, character, education that, go well beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now, not
Exactly.
that was it, but that parents say, well, that's your job. Well, no, it's not technically my job. It's your job because you have them for the first 5 years of their life. And then when they're 6, you send them to me, to school, wherever. And now you expect some big different result when they've already been instilled with something specific for the first 6 years of their life.
100%.
So, yeah.
And then if you manage to change that, the thing is, if the parents expect that from you and you manage to achieve it, they need to respect that decision. They can't expect you to raise their kid in a sense and then still undermine you when you're trying to do a good job.
Right. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. It's already been an hour.
I can't believe it.
And so I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully we will have many more on education. And so thank you so much for tuning in this evening to What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Maggio. Until next time.
Every Friday at 7 p.m., Punta Cana Hits presents What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Maggio, the #1 English talk show in the area, with the best that the Dominican Republic and the rest of the world have to offer.
Punta Cana Hits vive por ti. Si te quieres comunicar con nosotros, llama a nuestra emisora al 809-831-3333. 809-831-3333. 809-831